My first job. Exasperated, I snarl at my eldest. Would you ever do me the courtesy of bringing down your laundry so as I can fuck it into the drum of the goddamn washing machine? Please and thank you. 11 years old. At your age, Oisín, I was out there working, quite literally for my bread and board. I learned to split from my body, leaving it in order to tolerate my young life's traumas. Alrighty. Admittedly a tad heavy a disclosure in the midst of a Friday evening bollocking from Mum, my eye-rolling woke child, a most unsympathetic witness to my bloodletting. But boy does laziness offend me. I never knew laziness as a child. Innately we understood it to be a mortal sin, one that our souls would suffer hideously for in the long wait at purgatory, best to be avoided at all costs. Today that same inertia prods and antagonizes a sleeping and grotesque rage from deep within me. Flashes of rage that come from a seed planted in a time of great darkness, so cold nothing else could possibly grow. A fire once awoken boils and courses through my veins, causing me to clench my jaws, tongue deliberately held hard to the roof of my mouth. A concentrated yank of my pelvic floor, toes squirming, fists crunching, not my bony fingers in the vain hope of restraining, constricting the damn wildness of the surge of emotion from painful memories. I was 7 years young when left into the Ornavilla orphanage run by the Mercy Order of Nuns, carrying on their good and dutiful work of their founder, Sister Catherine Macaulay. The orphanage dominated the Rock Road, the Rock being the Lady of Lourdes grotto that rose boldly as gatekeeper to the spectacularly heavenly, beautiful town of Killarney, casting her long shadow over the ecclesiastical epicentre of all of the kingdom of County Kerry. I remember that first night, 40 years ago, as if no time has since passed. It was pitch black, without a moon or as much as a star in the night sky to offer solace on the long and eerie taxi journey to the orphanage. The pungency of overzealously heated milk hung in the air like the dirty hanging skins on the rim of the bath I'm now ushered into. The standing water already performed its evening role as sheep dip to the sleeping children already in their beds. I step into the water, fully clothed. I never meant to be such a bother, or cause such an explosive outrage of anger and disgust. We were from the sticks, plucked down from the side of a Kerry mountain. We never had running water. We shat and pissed outside like Taoists. We didn't have as much as a change of clothes either. In fact, I was in my nightdress earlier that same week at school, which was one of the many reasons I now found myself here, wherever in the name of God here was. From that night forth, at bath time, a rotation of older boys would take their turns to hide behind the bathroom door to pounce and gag me from behind, their strength effortlessly clasping my wrists together as if to arrest me, then shoving my rigid and frigid vessel up against the sink so as he could savour his naked captive in the mirror while my head hung in the deepest mortification and repulse. It's futile to struggle. I just suffer it out until he finishes his enthusiastic wank. The order was revered for establishing a number of community enterprises. One such was the Mercy Laundry, where I now served for my first summer after 4th class in primary school. All week long, from Monday to Friday, with a half day on Saturday to allow for confessions, and Sunday, Sunday was why the world existed at all. a childhood never graced the time to wonder and dream, every moment scheduled for labour and servitude. It was the summer of '86, and Madonna's True Blue album rang out from the radio. Arm in arm, skipping down the nuns' rosary lane, merrily we sang out like a virgin, touched for the very first time. We sensed it was a little naughty, but we were in no way curious as to know how or why. Maura Higgins of Love Island with her fanny flutters would have went well over our divinely innocent heads in those days. It was many, many years later before it dawned on me at all why on earth Sister would visit me at night. Her ominous, shadowy outline with her veil off would frighten the bejesus right out of me as she gently disturbed my sleep to raise both my arms from my sides onto my chest in a crisscross playtex know your heart kind of way. With eyes now open from the wet of holy water, I'd watch her silently glide across the bedroom to repeat the action on the other children. She needn't have worried. None of us girls ever managed to masturbate. It was taken from each one of us long before we ever knew of it. The flat-roofed utilitarian laundries sat on the grounds of the impressive convent and nunnery. An 8-bay windowed, 2-storey Gothic revival-style splendour built around a courtyard, with a dormer attic with a peephole window perched high, from where Sister Pius, most fucking pious indeed, patrolled and performed the morning's head count and roll call from our eagle's vantage, beginning our day with 7 a.m. Mass, amongst the no-faced, shrinking, standing stones and dying, mothy nuns. We knelt in solemn prayer. I was a sprightly child, and eager to showcase my mastery over long and complicated prayers with a sometimes Brian Blessed enthusiasm. I was happy to trade my devotion for the glow of attention. Then a brisk return to the orphanage for breakfast, overseen by our forever pacing and praying Mother Superior, Sister Alphonsus. She had the everlasting duty of praying for the sins of our mothers, although I never did learn what those sins were. My dutiful mother lost her virginity on her wedding night, with a knife held firmly to her throat. And when the full extent of his psychotic alcoholic brutality became impossible to survive, she knelt at the feet of her father and 2 brothers in the gutter of the family farm, pleading for refuge in the days long before the mercy of divorce. But instead of Christian compassion and charity, she was beaten so badly that she was never to recover. It would have been kinder to have allowed her to die that night, but instead she was cruelly condemned straight to hell. Never ever again would she be allowed to hold her precious 11-month young baby girl still suckling from her breast, birthed poignantly on her very own birthday, and lovingly christened her very own name, Teresa. Never again did she get to look into the eyes of her adored, blue-eyed, blonde little 3-year-old cherub, her only son, nor did she ever again get to hold the hand of her firstborn, me. She didn't even get to say goodbye, and spent her remaining decades as a ghost in psychosis, roaming the streets of the towns and villages, woods and mountains of Kerry, calling out for her taken children. That's when she wasn't in a straitjacket, in the padded cells of the notorious and terrifyingly inhumane St. Finian Psychiatric Lunatic Asylum, which hauntingly loomed only metres away from the orphanage where we were now separated and sentenced for life. Sister Alphonsus supervised, like Rodal's tyrannical Miss Trunchbull, But unlike Matilda, none of us kids possessed the telekinesis required to escape the utter lack of autonomy we had over our lives. Slopping up a porridge they cry out for in the plastering trade, we again returned to work, hard men's work. An assembly of baskets as large and deep as the ocean rolled out, heaped with miles of tangled starch sheets. Icebergs mounted like meringue peaks. Then the synchronized Morris-type dance of 4 young maidens as we shook out the finest tread count of sheets from each corner. It was our Olympic sport, and God protect us, the youngest and littlest of sacrificial lambs being paired up with the older, local, impatient women. Women with faces grey and creviced from years of steam starch fags and very little else. It was often their only opportunity to make physical their pent-up frustrations, and so with glee they'd give a violent shake with the sole intention of reefing out the corner of the sheet from my hand. This would cause a flurry of rescue, like the Eucharist being accidentally dropped and a gaggle of altar boys rushing to attend the scene. We couldn't risk impurities onto our most beautiful of sheets. Sheets destined for the arse of our neighbour, the Bishop Diarmid O'Sullivan, and all the arses of his clergy, and the many little children. Yes, the filthiest of sinful sheets in all of Killarney town made virginal once more. As the run to the litter, the initiation I dreaded most was a wicked whip of corner of the sheet masterly aimed at the eyeball before you had time to blink, causing you to drop like a man kicked brutally square in the balls. But you had to fall in silence, suppressing hard the natural urge to yelp and cry out, "You never call out! Never!" Pause. We'd stand at our workstations in silence for the 12 noon Angelus. I'd close my eyes, futefully fight back and lick my salty tears. "Forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing," she naively reassures me. Then dinner, a hurried silent routine and a return to work. We'd stand at either side of the gigantic roller, a product of the Industrial Revolution. Perched on footstools and working in pairs, the trick is to hold on tight to your corner of the wrung sheet and pull it taut like stretching a canvas. We carefully lined up the corner to be fed into the press, much hotter than the 100 degrees Celsius required for water to boil. Then came the angry blast of steam scalding my nostrils. Basins of iced water to cool the malicious skin burns, while the lower skin layer continued to burn right throughout the night. The sheets miraculously emerged, dry and stiffened, a sacred sight to behold, a privilege, and again the beautiful waltz of folding to godly perfection. The tips of my fingers now hardened with calluses not belonging on a child's hands, but I'm able to rat-a-tat-tat-tat the tune on any wooden surface. Supper, 6 o'clock. Another genuflection for the Angelus. Then the marathon, the rosary, a feverish exhalation of devotion. I fucking loved it. Here I shone with my proud proclamations. Like giving great head, I gave a great Apostles' Creed. The rise and fall and pace of praying led to climax after climax. Bernini sculptured the ecstasy of St. Teresa made real. Night after night, we knelt in tidy rows, facing an altar to the Holy Family. We were like pinned-in sheep, the parameters patrolled by wolves with praying hands that quickly turned rosary beads into knuckle dusters in response to any sideway glances. Often I'd have to kneel beside some fucker I'd later in the evening have to fight off me in the dark. If only I'd had the cop on of Lorena Bobbitt in those days, eh? It wasn't meant to be, but a freeze or fawn kind of kid I was. Fixating on a spot in the rooms dominating Byzantine painting, I concentrate my gaze. Holding the crucifix of our beads, the first of 3 mysteries were announced, each hosting 5 glorious decades of rosary. The littlest, in their hand-me-down onesies, were always the first to fall. They were too young for a nativity play, and their bellies too empty for this endurance test of both will and form. The trancing and hypnotic sway of 40 kneeling children, devoid of rebellion, submissive renunciates of all worldly possessions, calling out religious responses far in advance to our understanding of language, was without doubt a most unnatural state. It was here in this forsaken glass house, this microcosm of self-serving survival, brother separated from sister, and sister pitted against sister, and children torn from their mothers, aunties, grannies, and cousins, and expected to forget that they had ever come from them at all. It was here that I was first groomed to believe that I was the lowest piece of worthless scum in all of God's family. Poor old Oisin looks up at me from the washing machine. "Ah, Mum, it's Friday. Would you chill out?" History is rarely told by the antelope I bark. "It's a good job you're a fucking lion then, Mum," he quickly counters. You know, normally I tell him right off for the swearing, but I think we can agree for today. He's made a fair point.